Welcome to everyone who chose Pile 1. If you're here, you're in the right place. Today's topic is how they see you versus how you see them. So for this reading, we are going to talk about perception. How this person actually sees you right now and how you see them right now, and why those two viewpoints don't match in the first place. Because most confusion in connection doesn't happen because nobody has feelings. It happens because two people are standing in two complete different emotional interpretation and assuming the other person is standing in the same place. So let's start with how they see you. The way this person sees you is honestly complicated, but in a good way. You don't come across to them as a simple one note person. You don't feel flat. You don't feel boring. You feel like someone with layers, someone whose mind moves fast, someone who has opinions, thoughts, reactions, and presence that's hard to ignore. When you walk into a space, even energetically, they notice it. When you speak, they notice it. When you pull back, they notice that too. From their perspective, you're smart, quick-witted, and mentally stimulating. The kind of person they can actually talk to about things instead of just, exchanging small talks. They feel like conversations with you move like there's momentum, like there's substance. That alone makes you stand out compared to a lot of people in their life. At the same time, they don't feel like they fully understand you. It's not in a mysterious, sexy, romanticized way. It's more like unsettling way. They cannot always tell what you're thinking. They cannot always tell how deep your feelings go. They cannot always tell if you're all in, half in, or already halfway out the door. Your energy shifts depending on how you feel. And because you don't fake being okay when you're not okay, those shifts are visible. So, in their mind, you're attractive, interesting, and engaging, but also unpredictable. They don't see you as unstable, they see you as changeable, and that's a big difference. It feels like you have multiple sides and they haven't mapped all of them yet. Because of that, there's a part of them there's drawn in, like curious, intrigued, but there's also a part of them that's cautious, like they don't want to step too far forward without knowing what they are stepping into. It's not that they don't like you, they do, and also they think about you. It's that they don't feel fully settled about where they stand with you, and that uncertainty makes them move slower than you probably want them to. Okay, now let's talk about how you see them. You don't see this person as a mess. You don't see them as a lost cause or incapable. You actually see them as someone who has their life relatively together on the surface. They seem independent. They seem functional. They seem like they can take care of themselves. They don't look like someone who needs saving, and that's a part of why you're attracted to them. You probably look at them and think, this person could be a really solid partner if they just decide to show up differently. In your mind, they have potential. Not imaginary potential like, oh, I'm making this up. I'm talking about real potential. Like you can see the pieces are there, they're just not assembling them. So you notice that they hesitate a lot. They talk about things but don't always move on them. They seem to hover in place instead of taking steps forward. And instead of interpreting that as a permanent trait, you interpret it as a phase. You tell yourself they're resting, they're healing, they're processing, they're not ready yet. You don't see them as someone who will never change. You see them as someone who has not changed yet. And that difference is everything. Because if you believe this was who they were permanently, you wouldn't still be here. Here's where the perception gap really shows itself. You experience this connection as something meaningful. Not necessarily, this is forever, this is the love of my life, but meaningful enough that it shouldn't stay stuck. And meaningful enough, it should slowly move somewhere. And at some point, there should be conversation about what this is and where it's going. They don't experience it with the same weight. They don't see it as meaningless, but they see it as something that exists in their life, not something that defines their direction. To you, this feels like a path. To them, this feels like a moment. And a path versus a moment creates very different expectations. Another big difference is priority. You place them fairly high in your emotional world. You think about them, you wonder about them, you consider how they're feeling, and you factor them into your choices, even in small ways. But they don't operate like that right now. Not because they're heartless or bad. Their main focus is themselves, their life, their goals, and their own internal world. You are part of their life, of course, but you are not the center of it. That's the uncomfortable truth. So, now let's talk about communication because this is another huge part of the mismatch. You assume that your consistency, your presence, and your engagement already communicate that you care. From your perspective, staying is the message. Continuing to talk is the message. Continuing to show up is the message. From their perspective, those things don't automatically translate into this person wants something serious. They see more as, oh, we are talking, we are vibing, we are in each other's space. So you end up feeling like you're being obvious and they end up feeling like they're guessing. Neither of you is intentionally misleading the other. You're just speaking different languages. Now let's move into what actually helps in a real world practical sense. First, you have to stop assuming you are on the same page. Right now, you're not. That doesn't mean you never will be. It just means pretending you already are only creates more frustration. Second, if you want clarity, you have to use words, not ultimatums, not emotional explosion, not we need to talk energy. Just honest, grounded statements. Something like, I like you, but I'm not really built for staying in undefined situation for a long time. What else? I'm looking for something that slowly moves forward, not something that stays in the same place. You're not asking them to commit their soul, you're giving them information about how you operate. And third, after you say it, you don't cling to their immediate reaction. You watch their behavior over time. Do they start initiating more or do they show more consistency? Do they try to meet you halfway? Or do things basically stay same? That answer matters more than any sweet words in the moment. Another practical shift is about your energy. If you're always the one carrying the momentum, ease up. Not as a punishment, not as a test, not as a game, but as a reality check. If the connection only moves when you push it, then the connection is being powered by you. And that's important information. You also need to stop building your emotional future around who they might become. Start building it around who they are right now. Potential is not a relationship, behavior is. So, pile one. This reading is not telling you to cut this person off immediately. It's also not telling you to wait forever. It's telling you that you're emotionally ahead of them right now, and that gap is what hurts. Your power doesn't come from convincing them to catch up. Your power comes from deciding what you're willing to accept in your life. That was all for pile one. And thank you for watching today, and see you next reading. Bye. Welcome to everyone who chose pile two. If you're here, you're in the right place. Today's topic is how they see you versus how you see them. In this reading, we are going to compare perception. First, we'll look at how this person currently sees you. Then we'll look at how you see them. And third line, we'll look at where the perception gap is, why you keep falling out of sync. And finally, we'll look at very practical real-world advice on what you can actually do with this. So let's start with how they see you. Pile 2. This person sees you as someone who feels safe. They see you as warm, emotionally open, someone who genuinely cares. You don't feel like a game to them, or shallow or temporary. You feel like someone who could be part of their real life. They see you as a relationship material, someone they could settle into something with, someone who would show up, someone who wouldn't disappear easily. At the same time, they also see you as someone who gives easily. You love sincerely, you try, you invest, and they know that. So, in their mind, you hold a very comfortable position. Not just like, I like them, but I can rely on them being there. And they also see you as a patient. They see you as someone who doesn't rush aggressively, someone who can wait, someone who can give space, someone who doesn't constantly pressure. That makes them feel safe with you. But here's the subtle part. Because you feel safe, they don't feel urgency. They don't feel like they are about to lose you. They don't feel like they need to move fast. They feel like they have time. So, in their perception, you're stable, you're kind, you're emotionally available, you're a good option. Then, let's talk about how you see them. You see this person as someone who is currently paused in life. You feel like they're resting, recovering, processing. Maybe dealing with the past emotional baggage, maybe still attached to memories, maybe tired from something that happened before you. But in your mind, you don't see them as incapable, you see potential. You see someone who could set up or become consistent, eventually become a solid partner. So you tend to think they're just not ready yet. They just need more time. They're going through something. They'll change once they feel safer. That's how you think, right? You also tend to see them as someone who deep down wants love, someone who does have feelings, someone who is not heartless, which is why you stay and wait and you haven't fully walked away. So let's talk about perception gap. Actually, this line is the core of pile two. You and this person are operating on completely different timelines. From your perspective, if this is a situationship or a talking stage, you're thinking, shouldn't they be texting more by now or ask me out more or be clear about their intentions? And if this is a more established connection, you're thinking like, shouldn't we be talking about the future by now? Marriage be a conversation, a living together be a topic? Shouldn't we be moving towards something? And from their perspective, they think they are already doing something. They think, I still talk to you. I didn't leave. I'm still here. I didn't cut you off. So in their mind, they're making effort genuinely. But in your mind, they're barely moving. So the issue is not that nobody is doing anything. The issue is that your definition of effort are different. Your definition of effort include progression, future, planning. Their definition of effort includes presence. You want to growth, they want comfort. You want movement, they want maintenance. That's the mismatch. Another big perception gap, you see this connection as something that should naturally evolve. They see this connection as something that can stay as is for a long time. You are future oriented, they are present oriented. You're thinking about where this goes, they're thinking about how this feels right now. Neither of you is necessarily evil or lying, but you're speaking different emotional languages. Okay, now let's talk about the misunderstanding that comes from this. You start to feel like, why am I always the one waiting? Or why do I care? Why do I feel like I'm ahead emotionally? And they start to feel, I don't get why this is a problem. I'm not doing anything wrong and I'm still here. So you feel neglected, you feel misunderstood, you feel unseen, they feel pressure. and nobody feels satisfied. Now, let's talk about a harder truth. In this pile, the person you're dealing with is not in a phase of rapid growth. They are not on the edge of a huge emotional transformation, and they are not secretly planning to suddenly become ultra consistent. This pace you're seeing, this is close to their natural pace. They might improve slightly, they might open up a little more, they might do a bit more over time, but dramatic speed jump is unlikely. So if you are staying because you're waiting for them to turn into a completely different version of themselves, that's risky because, you know, their pattern. You tend to romanticize potential. You see who they could be, you imagine who they might become, you focus on future possibilities. Instead of fully anchoring into present behavior, you also tend to carry hope quietly. You don't always say what you need, you don't always say, I need more. You internalized it, you tolerate it. You try to be understanding, which sounds mature, but over time it turns into self abandonment. So, what you need is advice. First, you need to stop assuming that they know what you expect. If you want more contact, say it. If you want clear intention, say it. If you want a future oriented conversation, say it. You don't give them an accusation. You don't give them an ultimatum. You should give information. You should be like, for example, I'm looking for something that moves forward. I am a stage where I want to talk about the future. After you say it, you observe. Not for one day, not for one week, over time. Do they try to meet you? Do they make adjustment? Do they show increased effort? That tells you everything. And third, you need to decide whether their natural pace is compatible with your needs. Not whether they're a good person or, they mean well, they have a trauma, whatever. Compatibility is about lifestyle, pace, and expectation. If you need movement and they stay still, that's a mismatch. And fourth, stop waiting silently. Waiting without communication only builds resentment. Either you communicate to your needs or you start emotionally detaching. But staying silent and hoping is the worst option. So, pile 2, this connection is not blocked because there's no feeling. It's blocked because you're standing on different timelines. You're living in what's next, they're living in what's comfortable. So the real question becomes, are you okay staying at their speed? If yes, you adjust to your expectation. If no, you stop shrinking yourself. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't force. You choose environment and people that naturally match your pace. That's a self-respect. And that was all for pile 2. Thank you for watching today and see you next reading. Bye. Welcome to everyone who chose pile 3. If you're here, you're in the right place. Today's topic is how they see you versus how you see them. So this reading is about perception. It's not about fantasy or potential or what either of you wishes this connection could become, but how this person actually sees you right now, how you see them right now, and why those two views don't line up the way you probably hope they would. Let's start with the first line. The first line is about how they see you. The way this person sees you is very emotional. They don't see you as shallow or someone who just flirts for fun, someone who plays games for entertainment. They see you as someone who feels deeply, who cares deeply, who actually attaches when you let yourself attach. In their mind, you are not casual energy. It's not surface level or disposable. You come across as someone who forms a real emotional bonds. They also see that you've been hurt before. They sense emotional scars from you. They can tell that you've gone through things that changed you. Even if you don't talk about it much or Even if you try to act chill, there's a happiness to you that doesn't come from negativity. It comes from experience. They notice that you're more sensitive than you let on, and certain comments hit you harder than you show, and you internalize things. So sometimes to them, you feel intense. It's not in a bad way, it's more like this person feels everything kind of way. You don't have feel things and have care, have love. You're either in or you're not. They also see you as emotionally unpredictable because when something triggers you, you don't hide it well. You might pull back suddenly, or you might go quiet, you might emotionally shut down for a bit. From their perspective, it can feel like things are okay one moment and then heavy the next without them fully understanding what changed. So, in their mind, you're someone with a big heart, but also someone whose heart is fragile. Someone who can love deeply, but who can also break deeply. That combination makes them feel two things at the same time, and sometimes it can be overwhelmed. They feel drawn to you and they feel a little intimidated by you. Not because you're scary, but because they know that being with you is not light. Being with you means emotions, it means conversations. Deep conversations, responsibility. Now, let's talk about how you see them. You see this person as someone who could be fun to be with. You see them as someone who can create good vibes, who can make you laugh, who can make you feel relaxed, who feels easy to be around. They don't feel heavy to you. They don't feel complicated in their personality. Being around them feels simple. At the same time, you notice certain things. You notice they get bored easily and they don't always look satisfied. They often seem emotionally understimulated. It's like they're always looking for the next thing to distract themselves. So you feel like they always expect to hang out, plan conversation, what else, like fun, escape. You also see them as someone who enjoys the social environment. They like being around people, lightness, casual attachment, fun, distraction. They don't naturally gravitate toward deep emotional conversations. So, in your mind, they are a mix of this could be a relationship and this person doesn't really go deep. And I know you don't see them as a bad person, but you see them as emotionally shallow. It's not a judgment, it's just a difference. But you should know that people wired differently. They are not wired the way you are. This is where the perception gap shows up. And you believe that if two people put in effort, a connection naturally deepens, right? You believe relationships are built, you believe in working on things, growing together, and slowly creating something real. They believe a relationship should feel easy and natural. And they believe if it's meant to be deep, it will just become deep. So when things don't automatically deepen, you think, okay, we just need to try more. But they think maybe this is not just that deep. This is what it is. So neither of you is wrong, but you are playing by different rules. Another part of the misunderstanding is communication. You express it through action. You show up, you stay, you engage, you invest. In your mind, that is communication and that is the effort. But they express it through energy. If they are around you, they feel like that's enough. And they are talking to you, they feel like, okay, that's enough. And if they are hanging out sometimes, they feel like, you know, we had fun together, so that's enough. So you feel like you're doing a lot. They feel like they're doing enough. That gap is where frustration is born. Okay, let's make this really real. You might be thinking, why don't they text me more or check in on me or they ask a deeper question? Why does everything stay surface level? But they are thinking like, okay, we talk, we hang out, we are not fighting. What's the problem? So you're measuring effort by depth, but they are measuring effort by presence. So that's where the problem starts. Okay, let's talk about the core issue between the two of you. You're approaching this connection as something that should slowly turn into something real. They are approaching this connection as something that's meant to stay light, unless it naturally becomes heavy. You're bringing intention, they're bringing vibe. And you're bringing direction, they're bringing presence. And that doesn't mean this can never work, but it does mean it will not work on autopilot. Let me help you with a practical sense. First, you need to simplify this connection in your mind. Stop treating it like a big, complicated emotional puzzle. Ask yourself one simple question. Does this person show me through their actions that they want something deeper with me? It's not through flirting. It's not definitely through jokes or sweet moments. It shows with consistency. If the answer is no, then trying harder won't magically make it yes. Second, you need to be honest. It doesn't need to be heavy conversation or confrontational or dramatic. You can just be straightforward. Something like, I like you, but I'm looking for something that actually grows over time. I want more. So that's it. No speeches, no essays, you don't need to do emotional dumping. Just clarity. After you say it, you observe. Not for one day, not for one conversation, over time, at least 2 weeks. Do they step up or do they initiate more, show more consistency, or do they start meeting you halfway? Or do they stay exactly the same? If they stay same, that is your answer. And another important thing, stop assuming you can love someone into depth. You cannot. I'm not just talking about this person. In general, when you love someone, you like to assume that you can love someone into depth. Depth is a personality trait. Some people are wired for it, some people are not. It doesn't make them bad, but it does make them incompatible with someone who craves emotional depth. So, people who choose pile 3, this connection is not blocked because either of you is not on the same page. It's blocked because you're wired differently. You're wired to build, they are wired to experience. So the choice in front of you is not about changing them. It's about deciding whether this dynamic is enough for you. If it is, you lower your expectations. If it isn't, you stop forcing yourself to fit into something that feels empty. You deserve a connection that meets you at your depth, not one you have to drag down into it. That was all for pile 3. Thank you for watching today and see you next reading. Bye. Welcome to everyone who chose pile 4. If you're here, you're in the right place. Today's topic is how they see you versus how you see them. So for this reading, we're going to talk about perception, meaning how these persons see you, how you see them, and why those two viewpoints don't line up. Because most of the time when people feel confused in a connection, it's not because nobody cares. It's because both people are operating on completely different assumptions about what this connection is supposed to be. So let's start with how they see you. This person actually sees you as someone they could be in a real relationship with. They see you in a very practical way and grounded way. You come across as stable, reliable, and easy to imagine in their everyday life. You feel like someone they could have routines with, someone they could grab food with after work, someone they could spend weekends with, someone they could talk to regularly without it feeling forced. So you're not in the category of just for fun. You're more like this could be serious kind of type. But here's the catch. They also associate you with responsibility. Being with you feel like it would come with expectation. It feels like it would eventually lead to labels, structure, and decisions. And while they don't dislike that idea, they're not fully ready to step into it either. So, in their mind, you sit in this weird middle space. They respect you, they like you, they see you as high quality. But they're hesitating to cross the line into something official because once they do, they know they cannot pretend it's casual anymore. Okay, let me give you an example. They would be okay introducing you to friends, and they would be okay going on proper dates. They would be okay spending consistent time with you. But if the conversation turns into, what are we? Or where is this going? Something like that, like anything future oriented. Then suddenly get vague, change the subject, or say things like, let's just see how things go. So you're not invisible to them, you're not unimportant to them, you're just placed in a category that requires more maturity than where they are. Now, let's talk about how you see them. You see this person as someone who is not at their best yet, but could become better. You don't look at them and think, this is who they are forever. You look at them and think, oh, they are in a phase. Maybe a healing phase, or a confused phase, or a lazy phase, but still a phase. So when they don't show up the way you want, you don't immediately think they don't care. You think, oh, they are not ready yet. You give them a lot of benefit of the doubt. You assume growth will happen, clarity will come. Once they feel safer, more settled, or more sure, they will naturally start doing more. Right now, they might text inconsistently, but you tell yourself, once we get close, they will text more. Or they might avoid a future talk, but you tell yourself, once they're more comfortable, they'll talk about it. And they might not define the relationship, but you tell yourself eventually they will. So in your mind, you're kind of dating their potential, not just to who they are today. And that's where the perception gap starts. Because you're looking forward, they're looking at what feels okay right now. And you're thinking in terms of progression, they're thinking in terms of comfort. If this is still a talking stage or situationship, you might be thinking like, shouldn't they be reaching out more by now? And from their side, they're thinking like, we talk, we hang out sometimes, we're not fighting, everything seems fine. If this already more established couple, you might be thinking, shouldn't we be talking about moving in eventually, or like marriage be a conversation? From their side, they're thinking, why are we rushing? Things are okay. Why change what is not broken? So it's not that nobody is doing anything, it's that you're measuring effort by movement. They are measuring effort by presence. You see effort as growth, they see effort as staying. And that difference alone can slowly drive you crazy. Okay, let's see where misunderstandings start piling up. You start feeling like you are the one who is always waiting. Waiting for a text, waiting for a clarity, waiting for next step, waiting for them to meet you where you already are emotionally. On the other hand, they start feeling like you're never satisfied. Like no matter what they do, it's not enough. So you feel neglected. They feel pressure. You feel unseen, but they feel criticized. And nobody feels good. Now here's a very important truth about this pile. This person is not secretly about to wake up tomorrow as a completely different version of themselves. They might slowly improve, they might make small adjustments, but the pace you're seeing right now is pretty close to their natural pace. So if you're staying because you're waiting for a dramatic speed change or better version of them, that's risky. So let's talk about your role in this, because this part is not about blaming you, but it's about being honest. You tend to be hopeful and you tend to believe in growth. You tend to see the best in people. Those are beautiful qualities, but they can turn into self-sacrifice if you're not careful. You end up shrinking your needs. You end up telling yourself, I can't wait. You end up convincing yourself that wanting more is asking for too much. But wanting consistency is not asking for too much. Wanting forward movement is not asking for too much. So, okay, let me tell you what to do in real practical way. First, stop hinting. Stop hoping they will magically figure it out. If you want more, say you want more. Not in an aggressive way, in a calm, honest way. Something like, I like you, but I'm at a stage where I'm looking for something that grows and moves forward. That's it. And after you say, watch what happens. Do they start showing up differently? Do they try to meet you halfway? Third, be willing to accept the answer their behavior gives you, not the answer you want, the answer they shows. If nothing changes, that doesn't mean you're unlovable. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means your needs and their capacity don't match. And that's compatibility, not worth. So pile 4. This connection is not blocked because there's no feeling. It's because you're living in 2 different timelines. You're already mentally stepping into the next chapter, and they're still hanging out in the current page. So your power move is not to drag them forward. Your power move is to decide whether you're okay staying where they are. You choose environments and people that naturally move at your speed. And that was all for pile 4. Thank you for watching today and see you next reading. Bye.